More official demon rules previewed by Games Workshop. Let's talk about some murderous flesh hounds and brutal bloodthirsters. Hello and welcome back to Horsebets Tactics, where today we're talking demons once more. The next codex out for Warhammer 40k, and Games Workshop have finally started previewing some stat lines and interesting rules from the new codex. The other week they confirmed that those demon invulnerability saves were a real thing and gave us a few stat lines for some core troops units. Now to tie in with their 8th of the 8th previews, they've decided to show off a few bloodthirsty rules from the minions of Khorne. So let's take a look at Games Workshop's previews and a few interesting leaks on Bloodthirsters coming from elsewhere. So first up, and perhaps the most interesting of the reveals, are the new Flesh Hounds. These guys are currently 16 points per model, really quite cool miniatures, but not really all that good in game right now, to be honest. Their toughness isn't terrible, with toughness 4, 2 wounds and an invul save, but their damage output just really leaves a lot to be desired. AP -1 and not all that many attacks isn't a great combo. As with most slightly underwhelming things in 9th edition though, they have got some rather nice buffs to their core stat line. Their movement's going up from 10 inches to 12, so a little bit more threat range all around there. Being beasts, they interact pretty well with terrain as well, so it should be easy to get the jump on the opponent. They're now strength 5 at base rather than having to get it on the charge. Similar for the attacks, getting 3 attacks at base regardless of whether they are charging or were charged. And they've also got an improvement to their demon save as well. They still retain the 5+ invul and melee, but it goes up to a 4+ demon save at range, so really quite a solid increase in survivability there. They'll be able to laugh off half of incoming damage, including stuff that ignores invuls. Otherwise, they're supposedly going to have a rule called Savage Pounce as well. This one means that if they charge or heroic intervene into an enemy unit, they might have a stratagem for that, or it might just be something for Karanak, I guess. In any case, if either of those things happen, then they get +1 damage to their attacks. Annoyingly, they didn't actually say what their attack's damage would be, but it seems that the leakers on Discord have got this covered. Apparently via Corkin on Discord, the fangs will be AP -2 and damage 1 at base. So on the charge, your flesh hands would each be chomping away with 3 attacks at strength 5, AP -2, damage 2. Seems like that would be at least fairly efficient at chewing through space marines and things, and at least stacking a little bit of hurt on tougher targets like vehicles, though they're not going to much like -1 damage. I guess being quite fast could make them an interesting unit from Khorne's point of view, and they certainly seem both tougher and more dangerous than they were before. Whether or not it all adds up to them actually being one of the things that you really want to run in the Daemons Codex though is another question. I guess they'll be competing against Blood Crushers at the very least, never mind things like Bloodletters on foot, and any of the other fast attack from the other Chaos Gods. Still though, I find it unlikely that they're going to be as underwhelming as they are currently, so good news for them I suppose. Moving on, I thought it would be worth talking about a few leaks relevant to Bloodthirsters that have been coming out both on Discord and on YouTube. Already mentioned, I think in one of Wallace's previous videos, was there were toughness 8, I think either 18 or 20 wounds, and 8 attacks with either strike or sweep modes. Ludicrously dangerous in combat, and also a lot tougher to boot. One of the interesting things by one of Wallace's previous videos, which I'll link down in the video description, is that apparently the rumoured limits on Greater Demon fielding have been removed. It previously mentioned that the draft copies of the playtest codex said that only 1 Greater Demon would be around for each detachment, perhaps in a similar way to you not being able to field more than 1 Space Marine captain or things. According to him, that restriction got removed at a very late stage in codex development. He suspected potentially as them not wanting to invalidate people's collections at the moment if they did happen to say have multiple keepers of secrets, which is a fairly common competitive build demons wise at the moment. I guess we'll have to wait and see what finally materializes in the Daemons Codex when it drops, but if this really is true, then Monster Mass Chaos Demons might well be still on. A whole bunch of Greater Demons winging around, maybe 3 Bloodthirsters in a single detachment. They look potentially really quite scary with the amount of power and defense that they have at the moment. Otherwise, via Trout on Discord, he's confirmed that apparently the points cost upgrade for Chaos Demons is going to be the exalted rewards for the Greater Demons, so the options that you currently have to roll on that table at the moment, or just pick one. Kinda makes sense, a lot of things that cost command points before have gone to be points cost upgrades in 9th edition. Supposedly they'd be somewhere between 10 and 50 points, and could be really quite interesting I'm sure in combination with certain warlord traits and relics. If the leaks that we're hearing about the Greater Demons are true, then it doesn't look like they're going to be losing anything in power. Supposedly the Bloodthirster options are 1 for a maximum of 8 wounds taken per phase, counting as double wounding for bracketing, and +1 strength and +1 attack on the charge. I'm not sure if there's more than that. Maybe there'll be a full table of 6 like we had previously. Out of those 3, that max of 8 wounds taken per phase seems by far the most interesting. I'm sure it'd cost a whole ton of points, but seeing as their previous rumour was that Greater Demons would be going up to something like 18 wounds, that would mean that you now need 3 different phases to kill a Bloodthirster. You couldn't just do it in one. Seems like some really solid insurance against shooting to me, and that could well be worth picking up if it is pointed appropriately. Still though, it seems like pretty good news for Khorne's mightiest servants. Next up, back on the Warhammer community previews, we have Skulltaker. Sadly, they haven't given us a full stat line for this guy. He's basically the special character Herald of Khorne, and he quite enjoys lopping enemy characters' heads off, as his name might lead you to suspect. In the preview, they basically confirmed that he continues to have his reroll hits and wounds against characters. That is something that he already has, and he does have a damage 3 weapon at least at the moment as well, so he's pretty good at his job. Now though, he seems quite a lot more efficient at buffing bloodletters nearby. He's got a rule called Lord of Decapitations and Herald of Khorne. Lord of Decapitations gets you to nominate 1 core bloodletter unit in the command phase, and they get +1 to hit for a nice easy damage buff. Herald of Khorne, I'm guessing, is the aura for reroll 1s to wounds that the other heralds were rumoured to have. So if both of those are right, then he's going to have a serious amount of buffing power on bloodletters. Getting both of those buffs off equates to something like a 45% damage buff overall. Certainly seems okay if bloodletters are strong enough to be used as a main battle line infantry unit, which they really aren't at the moment due to being fairly fragile. Plus being a hidden threat against characters doesn't seem like it'd hurt either. He does also have a rule that if he kills characters, then both of those rules get a 3-inch range boost, but to be honest, anything that guarantees on allowing you to get to your opponent's characters and then survive the counterattack is playing a bit risky, and I feel like that's a bit more of a fun and fluffy type rule as opposed to something that's actually going to make much difference most games. Still though, it seems like this guy's going to be a bit better at leading bloodletters into battle. Finally, we've got one rebranded stratagem from Khorne, Frenetic Bloodlust for 1 or 2 CP, and this one replaces another stratagem of the same name. There was 3 command points for any Khorne unit to fight again. It was a really powerful if pricey option. In general, in 9th edition, most of the fights against stratagems seem to have gone away when they apply to an entire faction and usually get very limited to just 1 or 2 units. I don't know whether Khorne will have some way to fight again somewhere, but this one appears to have changed into a movement boost that weirdly applies at the start of the fight phase. You get to select a core bloodletter unit, that could be a bloodletter or presumably the blood crushers, and you either get to move 6 inches closest to the nearest visible unit as a normal move for 2 CP, or pile in at the start of the fight phase for 1 CP. I must admit, overall I think it's a little bit less exciting, as the move that you make would be a normal move. It's not going to be one that's going to allow you to engage enemies that weren't engaged already, so you can't just suddenly use it to kind of heroic intervention your bloodletters into combat, for example. It could allow them to maybe do a bit more move blocking though, or maybe pile a bunch of angry bodies onto objectives for the next turn, or potentially get you a little bit more movement with the pile-in, maybe to get more bloodletters into combat, or to stop the enemy interrupting and doing movement shenanigans by basing them in combat so they can't move. I think it's definitely a handy trick for Khorne demons to have in their arsenal of options, but maybe feels like one that might be a bit more opportunistic as opposed to one that's very reliable. So overall, a bunch of interesting stuff for the Khorne demons there. Hounds, Bloodthirsters, Skulltaker and a stratagem. As always, let me know what you think of these new Khorne rules down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly keep the regular videos coming, including new ones just about every single day. I'll be trying to keep up with all the demons news and rumours as they come out for the new codex. When it's released, I'll certainly review it in full. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that down in the video description. The Patreon is what allows me to keep on making all these videos quite so regularly, so if you are enjoying quite a bit, any support is massively appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few rewards, including seeing certain videos earlier, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.